Better explain how the maps worked. I logged in with a seldom used account, and when I logged in, I got this badge, this inventory item, which stacks and has a counter on it, and everything's date and time stamped. So you have a record of when each of your players accesses the game, depending upon the settings. Typically, I dial this in to the period itself that the classes work in, but with asynchronous learning and COVID, I just got this on a 24-hour clock. In part one, you saw my player had a lot of green and a lot of yellow available. This account has very seldom been used, and it applies a lot of locks. These 3 missions are each locked by this key, and this key is at the end of a chain. It's awarded automatically when this mission is complete, but you have to complete these in sequence because this is a chain. These are a pod. They can be completed in any order. This nest of missions where I've archived each and every daily, each and every weekly, and the other elements that have come into play in this column are only accessible once this mission is complete. And typically, dailies are locked until 7 a.m. on the day they're available, so students automatically know when content is going to be available, and they can see that this doesn't mean it's not required. It just means you're not going to earn anything other than experience by completing this. No other forms of loot or badges. There are a lot of moving parts and power behind this map where the missions are, or quests or adventures. But once you wrap your head around how this works, you can apply that same knowledge to the store, or the exchange as I call it, or the inventory items. Each one works based on the same metaphor, which we're going to explore. Think of this map as a Matryoshka doll. And I had to look it up, how to pronounce it, but these dolls, which each fit inside one another, is probably the best way to start to wrap your head around this. This page contains all the maps, and each of the maps contains all the missions you see that are in these map sections or columns. And these map sections or columns can be pods or chains. And within the individual map sections, you can have nested missions, which themselves can be pods or chains. And pods and chains can be interchangeably placed within chains and pods. The flexibility this allows is incredible. And when combined with locks that access date and time stamps and badges and inventory items and your level and the like, this becomes a very powerful way to introduce your players to the content you want them to experience. This may look and sound complicated, but Mick and I created this to make our job simpler, to make things more fun for the kids. And the idea that you have to create these in order, well, no, man, you could just drag this over here, and this pod, if you wanted to turn it into a chain, you could just go to the quick edit and change the setting to chain rather than pod. You notice that there are other options here that are in the quick edit. We wanted to, oops, that's the wrong place, reordering missions. See how easy that is? All of this is built for simplicity and speed of content creation. Now, very simply, to add a new map or a new page to the map page, you click this button to add a new map. To add a new section, you click this button. To add a new mission, you click this button. But once you create a mission, I click this button because virtually everything here has been cloned. Once you do the work to set something up and dial in the loot, why not clone it and just fine-tune what you have? In prior videos, you've seen me show this week 1 through 4 archive from the player's point of view, but the player didn't see this week 5 through 9 archive because this is a mission that I have hidden right now, but these are going to be archived. And I'll show you that later, but right now, I need to set up next week. Today's President's Day, so the week starts once again on a Tuesday. And today's the 15th, tomorrow's the 16th, so I will clone this mission by clicking this button. And because you can clone from site to site, you can clone from other people's sites. We're just going to clone this right here, but it's a great way to share content with one another. And once this clones, you are taken directly to the editing window. And the title is highlighted because you're not going to keep it. But in this case, I just want to change a few things. It's not a copy. And like I said, tomorrow's the 16th, and it's a Tuesday rather than a Friday. I head to the locks because I have these locked until 7 a.m., as I've mentioned before, and I'm just going to change it to 7 a.m. on the 16th. That's when it'll appear for the kids. And then I have a due date that I'm not using a timer, but my due date is at 3 p.m. on that day. And this has to do with district attendance and all that. That's why I've set this up. But I want kids to understand that this is important. And because they still have to do it, and there's nothing but experience, no loot at all, some of them are motivated, some not all. And then in the content, here's where, and there's a lot more going on here. But for right now, the content, we have a number of missions. I'm going to switch to the text tab and just show you. These are just YouTube links. We're using OEmbed code. So when you paste in a link in the visual editor, a YouTube video pops up. Sweet, huh? And then I have my notes from week 5 here, and then I can add week 6 and begin to talk kids through what the expectations are for this week. And then I can update this. Then back on the map, this appears directly below wherever I cloned this mission. So it's going to be below Friday, and there's Tuesday, and I'm going to move it up to the top of the list because that's going to start out the week. Now that we understand how to clone, I want to nest last week, week 5, down here in this archive. And you do that simply by dragging it below the mission you want to nest it into. Click on Quick Edit, click on Nested, click Save, and it's going to jump up there and it's going to become the first nest in either a chain or a pod. In this case, it's a pod, which is what I want. But in the Quick Edit, this is where you could change it to a chain if you wanted. But I want to make this archive visible for the kids next week. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And for right now, I'm going to nest the rest of these off screen, and I'm going to clone this to build next week's mission so I can show you what it looks like from the student's perspective. You can check the timestamp in the prior video to see that it just took me a few minutes, and that included messing up a couple times. So this is a quick way to work your way through building the structure for the content that you're going to add, because let's face it, each one of these has to have custom content for that day. From the student's point of view, they can see that each of these is locked on each successive day. The mission log is available on Tuesday and doesn't expire until 10 o'clock Friday night, but the rest of these expire at 3 p.m. as I've shown you before. What I didn't show you is I mentioned that each of these is locked by this inventory item, but each of these awards a unique inventory item that unlocks everything below it. You may notice that these 2 missions aren't locked at all. They're available. This is because this is content I want all students to be able to get at. So even though everything else is locked, there's the flexibility built in to cut these loose from any locks and make them available.